There are numerous plans available on the internet for the do-it-yourselfer to build their own HDTV antenna. They range from the absurdly complex to the most basic and simple ideas that honestly just don't work that well. After years of making numerous antennas of all different designs, I have found one that is what I think is perfect for most situations. It's easy to make, it's omnidirectional so it can get TV signals from almost all directions. It doesn't take a lot of skill or knowledge to make, and it can be very inexpensive to build. If this sounds like an antenna that you need, well, let's hop to it. The antenna I'm making today is to be used on my AFrame camper, so I'll be modifying the mount for that use, but the basic antenna can be used for just about any application. I'll actually be building this antenna from parts that I have on hand, so it will be no extra cost to me and just about an hour or so of my time. So what I'll be actually making today is a hoop antenna. Besides being simple to make, I like these because not only do they look good, but the dimensions don't have to be precise to get a good working antenna that gets really good reception. The main part of any antenna is a metal part that they call the element. I can use just about any long piece of metal to make this element. People have made it out of 1/4-inch copper tubing, a long thin piece of aluminum coat hanger wires, or solid core wire. My wire of choice is regular house wiring. Just this stuff here. This is 14 gauge house wire. They call it Romex. I've had equal luck with 12 or 14 gauge wire. This is again 14 gauge because I've got a big piece of scrap 14 gauge laying here on hand. I always use solid core wire. I'm not sure if stranded wire would work. I guess I can try to build one and see what happens, but better yet, why don't one of you try it for me and let me know in the comments how it works out. I've got enough projects going on right now. In order to make the element, I need a nice long piece of wire. The antenna is going to have a diameter of 26 inches when it's done. So that means I will need a circumference of 81.68 inches, or just over 81.5 inches. See, that's the hardest math you need to do, and I already did it for you, so you're welcome. I need to add a little extra length on this so that when I put it inside the antenna, I've got little leads on the end so that I can attach to it. So I normally make it a little bit longer than that. I make it about 84 inches long, and then I can trim it a little bit after it's been done and I've shaped the wire. Now the issue is, I've got 84 inches of wire here obviously, but that's a lot of wire to use, and Romex it's got 3 cables inside of it. There's the black, the white, and the just bare copper wire, and each one of those will work fine for an element. So instead of cutting just one long 86-inch piece, what I like to do is I like to do a little soldering work. Now if you're not comfortable doing soldering, go ahead and cut yourself the 86-inch piece, take out the element that you need, and just scrap the other 2 pieces. But if I cut this to 30 inches and I solder it together with about an inch overlap on each one, that's going to save me a lot of wire. So I'll mark this at 30 inches and take my cutters and just snip through this. And now I'll have 3 wires that'll be perfect. And this is a lot less wire than having to take an 81-inch piece. So I have to get these elements out of here, so I've got to use a razor blade. So the fun part starts. I do have to use a razor knife, so be very careful. If you cut yourself, the blood's not going to help the antenna receive a signal any better, so it'd be a good idea not to cut yourself. So I basically take the razor blade, and I don't want to go towards myself very far, towards my hands, and I'm just kind of cutting the sheathing off of this. And I'll just take it back a little bit and show you what we do. And I'll do the whole length of wire, but you see now it just pops apart like this. And I can pull out these wires. Now that I have my wires, I need to join these together to make one continuous wire. So what I do is I strip about 1 inch off of the ones with insulation and the copper wire. Obviously you don't need to do anything. And I kind of lay them next to each other. And then just to hold them in place, I pop a staple in, keep them nice and tight. And now I've got an area that I can run some solder in. The wire's insulation doesn't have any effect on reception. It's totally transparent to the radio signal, or the TV signal rather. But I always like to put the bare copper in between with black on one end and white on the other. I don't know, like I said, it's just what I prefer to do. Not really a big reason to do it. Now that you have your element all soldered together or made in one piece, whatever you did, you're going to notice that this is not going to make a really good antenna the way it is, because it's a little bit on the floppy side, and it's just not going to, it's just way too easy to bend. So you have to have the element that's going to give you the shape and maintain an even plane. It's got to be flat. And it's got to hold the 26-inch diameter circle for the antenna to properly work. And if you aren't using wire, but a stiff piece of copper tubing or aluminum, you don't have to worry about this issue. But if you're using wire like I'm using, and you need to make this into a loop, you need to make an outer casing and to make sure that everything holds its shape. It should be plastic, so it won't block the incoming TV signal, and it can't be too heavy. And here's what I use. This is called PEX Tubing. It's perfect for this application because it's fairly light, and it's totally transparent to TV signals again. I have a roll of this on hand because all of the homes in this area, including mine, are plumbed with PEX. If you do not have PEX on hand and you don't want to go out and buy it, because this roll can be a little expensive, you can substitute any light plastic tubing that'll hold its shape. If you don't have anything like that, you can kind of use your imagination. I actually took a piece one time. I took a piece of CPVC and a heat gun, and I cut a 26-inch diameter piece of plywood, and I heated it up and just slowly bent it around there until I got my circle shape. So again, use your imagination. You know, if you think about it, you can come up with some idea, I'm sure. But the plastic tubing, either the CPVC or PEX or something like that, actually looks the cleanest. So that's why I use it. The basic thing you want to do is end up with an antenna that has a diameter as close to 26 inches as you can make it. If you're a little bit over, you're a little bit under, that's still fine. It's still going to work fine. It doesn't have to be that precise. You just want to get it as close as you can. Now, what you actually want to do, because we're going to be using some mounts on the end, is we're going to want to cut a piece of this not at 26 inches diameter, but actually at 24 inches, a little bit shorter. So what I do to make it easy is I just put this on the inside and I slip this around until I hit a diameter of about 24 inches. And I just give it a little mark there. Again, don't have to be super precise. And then I'll just take my cutters and I'll cut off this piece. Now I just lay the piece flat on a table and I just stick this inside here, and as you can see, it's about 24 inches across. So this will work fine. Now I can go on to the next step. We need to make a mount for this to attach it so you can utilize it. So what you need is a couple of standard tees. These are CPVC because I have a bunch of these laying around. And what we want to do is we want to cut off a couple of pieces, put in the end, each side of them. So what I do is I measure off 1.25 inches, and we're going to need 4 of these pieces because we're going to make 2 of these ends. And I'll just cut off 1.25 inch piece of tubing, and then take a little bit of cement the ends in, and put them on opposite sides here. Make sure you get them in nice and tight like that, 1 on each end. Make 2 of these. What you need to do now is we've got to take your nice circle and we've got to cut it in half. So take one of these ends that you've made and temporarily just put it in here just to keep things lined up. And when you do that, because of the distance of this, and you measure across, you're going to find that you have an inside diameter of right about 25 inches. So half of 25 is 12.5. So take a straight edge, and I just kind of eyeball it, lay it down on the center of this right here, and aim it towards the other side. And what I want to end up is with 12.5 inches from this edge on either side. So if I measure there, right about 12.5 inches, and if I measure here, I'm right about 12.5 inches. So within about 1/8 of an inch or so, and I'll just mark that. Take that out, and again, using my shears or any way you like to cut pipe, cut the tubing, and I can just take and now I have 2 equal pieces. That came out pretty good. Take 1/2 of each of your end tubes and mark in a little spot here about 3/4 of an inch in. Again, doesn't have to be like super precise. You just want to be about 3/4 of an inch in. This is going to be where the wires are going to come out. So take a drill. This is a 7/16 inch drill. Just drill through. And again, do it on each end. And you just want it on the inside of the loop. That's all you got to do. And when we fish the wires through, the leads will come out of the ends here, and you'll attach to it to make your antenna. Take the T-fittings that you had made and cut a length of PVC again, or CPVC in this case. You want this to be 12.5 inches long, and glue it in. You might need to make 2 of these, and these are going to be the mounts for the antenna now. Okay, now that you've got your T-mounts, what we need to do is we need to start assembling this. So take the end that does not have the holes drilled in the ends for the wires and insert one of the T-mounts and put it flat so that everything is flat. Now what we need to do is attach this, make sure it's nice and tight, and what I like to use is these are lath screws. You just picked them up at Lowe's. These are number 8 by 1/2 inch. I like these because they've got nice wide heads. They're not very deep. They won't damage the wiring or anything, and they seem to do well in the weather. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a couple of screws in here to hold it. I'll use my little handy drill here, and on the back side of it, and just drill it in. Don't over torque it or anything like that. It just has to hold together. Again, it's nice and flat. We'll put one on the other side. All you got to do is make sure that you hit into the piece of PVC that you've made. And there we go. So that's half the antenna made nice and flat. So now what we need to do is we've got to feed the wire through the loop. And the easiest way to do that is go back to this and just remove these, temporarily of course, so we can feed the wires through it. And then we'll get our wire, our element, and starting at the other end, up here at this end, so way up on this end, we're going to feed it through half of this. Just push it through until it comes out this end. Then we're going to feed it through here. And then feed it through here. And just keep on working it through. And that's all the way up. And then we can put this back together. Just put it back in and put the screws back in. And since we've already got the holes drilled, I can just use a regular Phillips head screwdriver and tighten these down. Before you do this next step, strip off a good amount of wire off of both sides to make sure you have nice clean elements. And then what you want to do is you want to take a pair of needle nose pliers and fish it through the hole that you had drilled, the ones that are at the 3/4 inch point. Now we can take and test fit this, put this in here like that, and we take another put another 1/2 inch fitting in the middle to get this in like that. And now I can measure across, see how close I am if I've got to make any adjustments. So we're right about 26 inches across. So that's gonna get right there. So that's going to work perfectly. Again, if it was a little bit more, if it was a little bit less, it still worked fine. So now that this is in here, it's centered and all secure, what we want to do is put the screws in this end and get that all locked down. Now we're ready to make the electrical connections. So taking another one of these lath screws and mount it on the inside. Back it out a little bit. A little too far. Alright. So now what we have is we've got a screw right here between the two of these, and we can take the wire and we're going to just loop it around here nice and tight. And after we're all done, we'll take this little extra piece right here and we'll just snip it off. Go ahead and do it on the other side. And again, loop it around. And there we have our electrical connections that we're going to attach to our cable. Now this is a very important part that you're going to need. This is for those who don't know, this is a matching transformer. And what it does is it converts 300 ohm resistance that the wire has to 75 ohm resistance that the cable has. I have seen a lot of people on the internet just taking the cable, stripping back the ends, and then using that and attaching it directly to it. Will that work? Well, yeah, it will work, but it's going to give you a terrible signal. So get one of these. I don't know if anybody locally carries them. You can order them online through Lowe's, through Walmart, Home Depot. You might even be able to find one at one of your local hardware stores if you look around for it. But again, if you want to get good reception, get this. It's called a matching transformer or a Balun transformer. Some people call them Balun transformers or just Baluns. So get a hold of one of these and then attach it to where you just made your screw points. So I want a good electrical connection. So I take my Balun and I try to get it between the wire loop that I made and the top of the lath screw. Hold it in there nice and tight and snug that up. Again, you want to make it nice and firm. You don't want it to have a loose connection. Do it on the other side. So the antenna is built. As you can see, I've put a 1/2-inch piece of pipe inside of here. This is still, like I said, just a friction mount, so I can fold this to stow it in my trailer. And then at the bottom of this, I have put a fitting on here. This is a 3/4 inch threaded fitting on the bottom of this. I'm going to use this to mount onto the mast I'm going to make for my trailer. Now, if you're not using this for a trailer, you don't need that type of mast. You can do any type of mounting on the top here. You can take and just clamp this up here to a regular mast post, or you can adapt this to a different size piece of PVC or whatever you need to do. But let's go ahead and put together the mast for this antenna. And digging through my scrap, I found a couple of pieces of PVC, a couple lengths of PVC, and an inch PVC pipe slides into an 1.25 inch PVC pipe, nice and smooth, so I can make a collapsible mast. And when this is fully extended, I'm going to have about 7 foot 10 inches of a mast on top of it. And you see I marked the little green line, and I have drilled a hole in there so I can put it to the proper height, stick a pin in here, and lock it into position for the antenna. So I'll be all set to go. One last thing I had to do on the mast, I had to find a way to mount the fitting on the base of the antenna into it. So I had this brass fitting right here, and this side right here goes right into the coupler that I have on the bottom of the halo antenna. So all I did was I took my heat gun, I heated the top of the pipe up, I pressed this down in there and twisted it in, and now it's all locked into position. So to use the antenna, all I have to do is screw this into the base of the short little mast coming off the antenna, attach my cable to it, extend the antenna up, and clamp it to the back of my bumper. So let's go see how it works. First thing you do is you take the mast and you screw in the base of the antenna into it. Screw in the cable line. Using a spring clamp, attach it to the back of the bumper of the trailer. Extend up the mast to full height and put the pin in. And then just attach the other end of the cable to the connection for the RV. Well, it looks good. It's all together. Let's go and see how it works. Here's one more thing I recommend doing, and that's putting an amplifier down here at the TV end. For most channels you may not need it, but if you're outlying a little bit, you may need it, and it also helps bring in a couple of those weaker stations. So for the inexpensive cost of an amplifier, there's no need not to have one. Alright, let's go ahead and scan, see what we come up with. Let it do its thing. "44 channels. That's as good, if not better, than my home antenna that I have. I'm pretty happy. As you can see, lots of channels to watch. 44 of them. And again, the measurements on everything doesn't have to be exact. Get them very close as you can. If you're off a half an inch or a little bit, it'll probably still work fine. I hope this helps you out, because antennas for RVs in the first place are expensive, and secondly, none of them really work that well to mount on a A-frame trailer. So I hope you enjoyed what I showed you today and that you can use it. If you have any questions or any comments, please let me know. Thanks.